Hello guys, welcome to another episode of Clues, Cues and Reviews, and today we're looking at a theory. Yes, a One Piece theory. I haven't done one in a long time, and after reading the latest chapter of One Piece, a Scanlation chapter, I'm waiting on the visa translation just to see if anything's different, but I have a theory on the possible location of the fourth poneglyph, road poneglyph. Now, before we get into it, you've got to bear in mind that being someone like many others that I read the same content, a lot of the ideas that I come up with or conclusions I come up with will be similar or the same as other people as well. So with that in mind, there's a few people I'd like to give a shout out from the beginning, just so no one can say, oh well, he said this first and the rest of it, right? So some of these that I agree with have actually been mentioned by other people. So to name a few now, we have Roger's Base, who mentioned a theory and his examples. We've got Boris Anime that I want to mention, and also Fanimeyt, who I had a conversation with on Twitter about his thoughts and my thoughts, and a lot of the stuff I agreed with him on. So I just want to get that out of the way first before we get into it. But without further ado, let's get into this theory. So point number one, the possible location of the fourth poneglyph in one of the theories is that it's possibly with the world government. Now, one of the reasons why a lot of people think this is to do with something that was said by Doflamingo about having knowledge of the sacred treasure in Mirageous, and if the people found out about this, it would turn the world upside down. And this can work in one of two ways. Let's just say, for argument's sake, it is the poneglyph, how they've gone about getting this. So one of the theories is that O'Hara, being that they could decipher the actual poneglyphs, either had one on standby so they can actually work with, but also had knowledge of locations of others, maybe by deciphering that, and based on either what was there on the island, because it's indestructible, or based on a journal that they may have stolen first or captured first, were able to find the location of said road poneglyph. Now, other things that may be possible. We've got the potential of it being on Elbaf. This was mentioned by Roger's Base. Because it's quite heavily mentioned throughout the story, I'm guessing we're going to go there at some point, because I keep going on about it. We've been introduced to the crew of the Giants. We got introduced to them before, right at the beginning of entering the Grand Line, with Dory and Groggy. And it could be possible that it was there, being that it's an ancient kind of civilization. They live over 300 years old, so somebody would have to know about it, or know the location of it. So it's possibly that it was stolen from them, or it's there. The third point to this, for this section, is the Vinsmoke family. So the Vinsmoke family, having close ties in the underground and ties to the world government, would be a good person or a good organization to have this. Being that they rule the underground, being that the actual poneglyph is lost, it could have been found, sold, or still in their possession. Or it could go a different way. It could be that the copies of these translation, or these glyphs, so to speak, have been copied and they've been distributing them around the black market. At the same time, there's a theory that extends on this a little bit, or adds upon this, about the leader of the Vinsmoke, Sanji's father, being the blonde Gorosei. And this is the conversation I had with Fanime over Twitter, so I just want to give him another honourable shout out there. So it's an interesting point where they could have got this information from, and naturally, if the government's involved in all these different things, they'll be in possession of it. On the flip side, the detractor to this theory is the idea that maybe Doflamingo was talking about an ancient weapon which has a destructive capability of destroying the world. It's like a world beater, so to speak. So that's the first section of the theory. So we've got the government getting it either from Elbaf, O'Hara, or the Vinsmokes, with the potential leader of the Vinsmoke being the Gorosei. So that's point number one, the world government. So point number two, Yonkou, current and former. So let's start with the current. There's a belief and there's an idea that potentially Shanks has it. Now you're probably thinking, why would Shanks have it? There could be a lot of different reasons for this. So one of the reasons is the fact that he was given the goal or the quest to find the next, to find the one, so to speak, and he's been in kind of protection or guiding this road poneglyph, so that when the right person came, if he proved his worth, he could give this to him. Now, this could be a good possibility because if you think about it, he was a member of the legendary Pirate King's crew, Roger's crew, so he would have at some point knowledge of where the locations of these were and what these locations represent. So it's interesting that that theory is out there and makes a lot of sense, but it's one of those where, what is his motivations? Could that be the only reason? What would happen if he died? So let's just say Shanks has died. This could lead up to the storyline for Blackbeard killing him for this. I'll talk about Blackbeard in a little bit further, but that's potentially the storyline there. Now, another Yonkou, a former Yonkou, Whitebeard, may have been in possession of this. Bearing in mind, although they was rivals with Roger, the Pirate King, it could also be the fact that, bearing in mind they were respected each other, that Roger told him where it was and told him to keep it safe, much potentially like he would have done with Shanks. Now, because he wasn't specifically interested in the One Piece and he wanted a family, he may have been keeping it safe for Roger's son, who he took in, and that's possibly part of his motivations. Now, what does this mean for a storyline moving forward now that he's died? With a lot of the actual territories being taken over by Blackbeard and a lot of the captains, allied captains, being decimated by Weeble and his mother Booking, there's that coincidence that's there that Blackbeard seems to benefit from everything Weeble and his mother do. So there was a theory I made not too long ago when the whole thing with Weeble came out, that potentially, not that Weeble knows about it, that maybe Booking is working with Blackbeard to hopefully find and defeat the remnants of the Whitebeard crew, but also find this so-called treasure, this inheritance that she kept referring to, and maybe that is this information or this road poneglyph, which would directly benefit Blackbeard, because if he got that, he'd be one step closer to becoming Pirate King, which, as you know, is his motivation, even though he does it in a cruel and twisted way. But that is point number 2, Yonkou. So point number 3 is really honourable mentions and potential people it could be, but not necessarily a greater chance than everything else. But as you know, with One Piece, you can be completely wrong. You know, Oda can surprise us, as he's done many times before. So these are a few honourable mentions that I thought I'd throw together just to kind of get it out there. So the first one of this point would be Boogie. Now you're probably thinking, why Boogie of all people? Boogie has been shown to be one of the favourites of Oda. He's liked him as a character, and he seems to bring him back and give him a lot of power and position. People thinking, you know, it's not warranted or he doesn't deserve it, but he still gets there. So one of the things that came up previously was when he was given the whole Shibukai invitation, and they were going through the conversation, as in the world government were, about everybody. He started talking, whether this was filler or not, I can't remember specifically for the manga, but I remember in the anime, he was talking about, yeah, you know, they needed me, they came to me, and I'm going to become a Shibukai, and then I'm going to become a Yonko, and then I'm going to become a pirate. So he has the ambition. Now, bearing in mind, again, he was with Shanks on the Pirate King ship. He would definitely know about it, as would Rayleigh, as would any of the members of his crew. But the only ones we know of at the moment that are alive are them 3, Shanks, Rayleigh and Boogie. So there would be a good chance for him to know about that. Now, moving on to 2 honourable mentions that kind of go hand in hand. I'll start off with the ancestor, Norland. Mont Blanc Norland. Being that he was an explorer, being that he knew about the City of Gold, being that he met the Tontatas at one point or another, and potentially the whole thing with Elbaf, there's a good chance that if he did explore those areas, he could have come across on his journeys the potential location of this poneglyph and many others. So it could be possible that they come across his diary at some point, notes of his navigation, and find information on a poneglyph or two, which might lead them to a road poneglyph. Now, by extension, with the ancestor having found this, it could also be possible that the actual more recent kind of incarnation of Mont Blanc in Mont Blanc cricket, the ancestor whose ancestor was this explorer, what if he finds the actual the journal, so to speak, or maybe in his exploration he finds it. Although he's not in the new world, it could be quite possible that he does come to the new world, or maybe he's trying to find the Straw Hats because they're his friends now and he wants to help them out. So that's another possible avenue this could go down. So these are all different storylines that they could go down. So that's my next point. So a few things I forgot to add at the end. I got interrupted because of noise in the background. Living in a big closed-knit family, you get a lot of noise, so I had to break there. But there's two other ones I wanted to mention. One of them being Jinbei. So in one of the cover stories, he finds a poneglyph, and you can see with Wadasumi, he's making his journey potentially after the whole Big Mom situation, all that gets cleared up, potentially joining the Straw Hats. Hopefully, fingers crossed. Now, the thing is with that poneglyph, it wasn't really clarified at that point, and we didn't really get any different type of shading, or it wasn't shown to be different or apparent than any of the other poneglyphs we've seen so far. And we've only really had a different type of shading when this one on Zo was kind of shown, this road poneglyph. So it's possible that it is a poneglyph, but it's one of those where it's quite unlikely, because it was one of those where it seemed normal, and it could just be a location to something else. So it could be like we saw on forget his name right now, Alabaster. When we saw on Alabaster, there was one there that wasn't that colour, but it talked about the ancient weapon. This may be one of those. So the last one that I wanted to just throw in there. So I think this is a long theory. I wanted to get as much content as I can in there just to cover all bases. Is Dragon. Now, again, this one's a bit healthy skelter because he's known as the world's most wanted man, the world's most dangerous man. No, he's not Ken Shamrock. No, we're not going there. But there is a chance that he's either got an ancient weapon or a poneglyph, or the road poneglyph. Now that would make him dangerous because he may have just stole it from the world government potentially, right? Because of all those other people that he stole it from. But he's potentially one person that could have it, being that he's a direct kind of force opposing the world government. So who best to kind of help kind of move the tides towards finding the truth than someone like him? He already doesn't like the way the world works at the moment. So this could be part of his ingenious plan to really restructure the world into a more fair, open, knowledge based kind of way. So it's interesting. Now here's the things that can kind of come across and detract from this part of the theory. He had Nico Robin with him for nearly enough 2 years. Yes, I say near enough because she was on that Tequila Wolf area for a while, right? So she went with some of the members of the Revolutionary Army. She may have met Robin. You can see they know each other and he seems to trust her. But people would think that if he had the poneglyph and he knew that she could actually read them, that he would show her those. Here's the thing that can go hit and miss with that. So he may have had her teach other members of the Revolutionary Army how to read poneglyphs. Quite possible. They seem intelligent enough. They can't just be all grunts and soldiers, because they've had to go out, the commanders have had to go out and basically basically kind of overthrow places. So they've had to have a decent knowledge, a charisma, an action about them. At the same time, it could also be a situation where, knowing that she knows this, he's basically kept her safe for those 2 years because other people might be after her. Again, apologise about the noise. Hope you enjoyed my theory. As always, please like, comment and subscribe and share, and check out all the links of all the other theories I've got in my description below. See you later. Peace.